Have you ever tried everything? Visualizations, belief, affirmations, and still ended up with nothing? What if I told you that the easiest method to manifest money requires neither belief nor imagination? Just one quiet decision, and $10,000, 0 cents, appeared. I did not visualize. I did not sit with my eyes closed and imagine money raining from the sky. I did not even believe it would happen. And yet, it happened, exactly as if I had willed it into existence. One cold evening, I was walking down Madison Avenue with no real desire but a silent dissatisfaction stirring within. I glanced at a tailor's shop and thought, I would like a new coat, but I need money first. No sooner did the thought pass than I felt a peculiar stillness, a deep knowing without emotion, without image, without any drama. Just the awareness of having already received. I went home. I did not meditate. I did not declare affirmations. I simply let it go. Within 3 days, I received a call from a friend in California. He had owed me money for years, a forgotten debt. He said, I've been thinking about you. I just mailed you $10,000, 0 cents. I hadn't asked, hinted, or tried. I had only assumed, without effort, without visualization, and certainly without belief. This is the easiest method, the silent assumption that it is already done. To manifest any specific amount, even something as precise as $10,000, 0 cents, you must first release yourself from the world of appearances. You cannot measure your life by what your senses currently report. The senses lie. They are only the echo of your past assumptions. To manifest quickly, you must step beyond what you see and instead dwell in what you know, not intellectually, but internally. The moment you identify yourself with the fulfilled state, you've activated a creative power that is far more accurate and reliable than any visualization, belief, or method taught by men. This is not fantasy. It is fact. Creation is finished, and all possible versions of yourself already exist. Your job is not to create money. It is to accept the version of you who already has it. You do this not by force or effort, but by being still and inwardly selecting. I didn't manifest $10, 0 cent K by constructing some elaborate vision board or forcing myself to believe something I clearly didn't. I simply stood in a quiet moment and allowed myself to feel what it would be like if it were already mine. I didn't even dramatize it. There was no image in my mind. There was no tingling sensation or miracle wind in the air. There was only stillness, and in that stillness, I agreed. It is mine. This agreement, silent, calm, and internal, is what sets everything in motion. The assumption hardens into fact when you no longer seek signs, when you no longer ask how, when you no longer react to the outer world's refusal. You remain in the state. That is all. The reason most people fail to manifest specific amounts quickly is because they constantly return to the identity of the one who doesn't have it. They ask the wrong question, where is it? Instead of, who am I? When you shift from the seeker to the one who has already received, the world must follow. It doesn't require belief in the usual sense. I did not believe it with my intellect. I simply wore the state like I would wear a coat. I didn't wait for evidence. I knew I was warm because I put it on. In the same way, I knew I had received the money because I stepped into the identity of the person who has it. There was no need to see the money. The knowing replaced the seeing. This is the invisible cause of all visible effects. When you identify with wealth, your relationship to money changes. You do not chase it. You do not beg for it. You do not try to trick yourself into believing it's coming. Instead, you walk as the one who has already been provided for. You speak less of needing and more of having. You look at your world not with eyes of lack, but with eyes of quiet possession. Every step is guided, not by desperation, but by gratitude. Many ask, how can I feel rich when I am broke? The answer is simple. By not trying to feel rich, but by being still and knowing that your outer condition has no authority. If it did, no one would ever change. Your current state is simply the fruit of past assumptions. Uproot the old assumption and plant a new one. Occupy the state of wealth inwardly, without drama or effort, and life will yield to you. To manifest $10.00 K-Fast, you must stop being the version of yourself who needs it. That is the great shift. You must walk in the identity of the one who already has it. Do not worry about how long it will take or what needs to happen. That is none of your business. Time is only a tool, not a barrier. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the new state, not by force, but by feeling its naturalness. I did not force the $10.00 K to come. I did not affirm my way into wealth. I simply accepted that I was already provided for. I assumed the money had found its way to me, and so it did. I did not obsess over the method. I did not visualize. I did not repeat mantras. I simply stepped into the feeling that it had already occurred, and because I lived in that knowing, the outer world had no choice but to reflect it. In this method, you do not manifest by trying harder. You manifest by surrendering more deeply, not to the world, but to the truth of your inner being. When you no longer react to appearances, you begin to reshape them. When you refuse to be impressed by lack, you erase it. And when you walk as the one who is already fulfilled, then the world rises up to match you. The assumption must be natural, not strained. You are not trying to be someone else. You are returning to your true identity, the one who is never in need, the one for whom all things are already given. When this becomes your reality, not just in word, but in inner stillness, then you will see how quickly money, opportunities, and even forgotten debts will rush to fill the space your assumption has cleared. You are never trying to get money. You are remembering that you already have it. The outer result is simply the shadow cast by that inner reality. Remain in the state, and the shadow must appear. Step out of it, and the shadow fades. The key is not effort, but identification. When you truly identify with the state of wealth, then money becomes as natural as breath. Not because you believed in it, but because you became it. Effort is the great illusion that keeps man from realizing his desires. Most people believe that if they want something badly enough, they must strive, sweat, visualize harder, believe more deeply, or somehow manipulate circumstances into alignment. But what they do not understand is that all of this striving is itself a confession of lack. The more effort you exert, the more you reinforce the identity of the one who does not yet have. And as long as you identify as the seeker, the fulfillment must remain distant. To manifest effortlessly, especially something as measurable as a specific sum like $10,000, 0 cents, you must relinquish the belief that effort is the way. There is a state beyond effort, and it is called knowing. It is not an emotional excitement. It is not mental chatter. It is the still, quiet sense that something already is. That state is available at all times, and it is the place from which all true manifestation arises. You may call it passive acceptance, but do not mistake it for apathy. It is not giving up. It is not ignoring your desires. It is embracing their fulfillment as already done, without needing the world to show you proof. This kind of knowing does not operate from the outside in. It does not wait for bank balances to change before feeling abundant. It does not need others to congratulate you before knowing you've succeeded. It begins from the inside and radiates outward. When I received the $10,000, 0 cents, I did not earn it. I did not hustle for it. I simply stepped into the version of me for whom it was already true. There was no strain. I did not script every detail or envision golden envelopes. I simply let go of needing it and allowed it to be. Passive manifestation is not a matter of carelessness, but of alignment. The moment you stop obsessing, calculating, or begging the world to change, you've already begun to change your world. The desire is fulfilled not through emotional exertion, but through a deep agreement with what already exists in consciousness. For all things already are. Every possible outcome is finished, waiting only for your selection. So then, what is the real work if not effort? It is to accept without resistance. If a man can sit still for 5 minutes and feel that what he wants is already true, not imagine it, but feel the truth of it, then he will bring it into form more quickly than someone who spends days forcing visualization and repeating mantras. There is a still point in the soul where you become the thing desired, and in that moment, the desire ceases to be a wish and becomes a fact. I have witnessed people exhaust themselves trying to manifest as if life could be bullied into cooperation. But when they release the tension, even for a brief moment, things begin to shift. Why? Because it is not your willpower that moves the world. It is your state of being. If your state is that of struggle, you will receive more struggle. If your state is that of peace, things come to you gently. If your state is that of having, life has no choice but to mirror your abundance. The idea that you must do more to get more is deeply rooted in human conditioning. But spiritual law is different. Here, less is more. Silence is power. Stillness is creation. Inactivity, when conscious, is more potent than 1,000 acts taken in fear. When you rest in the feeling that your desire is fulfilled, you draw it to you like a magnet, not through force, but through resonance. Think of the person you know who always seems to attract money or love or opportunity without trying. It is not because they are lucky. It is because, even unconsciously, they have identified with having. They expect it, they live in it, they are not hoping, they are assuming. And this assumption, carried passively and without inner conflict, does all the work. There's nothing wrong with visualization or belief, but neither is required when you truly dwell in the state of fulfillment. In fact, the effort to believe often signals doubt. But when you bypass belief and go straight to being, you collapse all resistance. The path becomes simple. It becomes automatic. This is the secret. The less you try, the faster it comes. Not because trying is bad, but because trying is proof that you have not yet accepted the truth. Once you do, the trying ends. The fear dissolves. You do not pace the floor waiting for confirmation, you rest in it. And the world must catch up. This is what I mean by passive manifestation, not sitting back and doing nothing, but entering the deepest kind of agreement with yourself. A private acknowledgement that what you want has already happened. And the moment you accept that fully, the bridge of incidents begins to build itself. You do not even need to understand how. It is not your concern. The mistake people make is in seeking evidence too soon. They ask, "Where is it?" before they've fully worn the identity. They look to the mailbox, the inbox, the bank account for signs, never realizing that the sign will appear only after the state is stable. This is why passive manifestation is so powerful. It prioritizes being over seeking. When you are at peace with having, the world begins to respond. The call comes, the door opens, the opportunity appears, not as a miracle, but as the natural result of who you have become. You do not chase the money. You allow the money to find you, because it already belongs to you in consciousness. You must learn to wait without waiting, to act without forcing, to walk as the one who has received, even when nothing seems to have changed. That is the mastery, and that is how $10,000, 0 cents, or anything else finds its way to you without strain, without belief, and without even needing to visualize. You simply decide that it is done, and so it is. You do not need pictures in the mind to manifest. The common teaching insists that you must see, visualize, construct vivid scenes, but this is not necessary. What is required is a sense of naturalness. It must feel as ordinary, as effortless, as familiar as putting on your shoes. To bring about the fulfillment of any desire, money, relationships, health, You must become so inwardly aligned with it that it no longer feels like a wish. It feels like a memory. It feels like the present. And in that simple inward alignment, creation unfolds. When I desired $10,000 0 cents, I did not sit with closed eyes trying to form images of banknotes. I did not rehearse a scene of someone handing me a check. In fact, there were no pictures at all. But there was something far more powerful, a deep and silent knowing that the money was mine, that it already existed, not in potential, but in fact. That feeling, the quiet confidence, the calm possession, was the seed. I did not force it. I did not manufacture emotion. I simply stood in the state of someone for whom it was already true. Many confuse visualization with imagination, but imagination is more than mental imagery. It is being. To imagine a thing properly is to occupy the reality of it, not to watch it from the outside, but to dwell in the identity of the one who already has it. That dwelling place is not found through imagery alone. It is found through the acceptance of a new nature. When you accept the state as your own, even for a moment, you trigger the mechanism by which reality reshapes itself. The naturalness of the state is the measure of its power. If it still feels foreign to you, the world cannot yet reflect it. But if it feels like home, if you walk as the one who has it, speak as the one who knows it, rest as the one who lives in it, then you have already succeeded. It is not the intensity of the desire that brings it into being, but the ease with which you can assume its fulfillment. When something is natural, you do not need to prove it. You do not need to convince yourself. You simply act accordingly. If you truly felt wealthy, you would not question it. If you truly believed the money was already received, you would not keep checking. You would not ask when or how. You would simply carry on, inwardly satisfied. This satisfaction is not passive, nor is it blind faith. It is a state of consciousness so complete, so convincingly real, that the outer world becomes irrelevant. You no longer measure your success by what you see. You measure it by what you are. The outer signs will follow, but they no longer determine your inner truth. This reversal, where the inner guides the outer, is the mark of true spiritual maturity. To manifest without visualization is to trust the inner shift over the outer scene. You do not need to picture the money. You only need to feel that it is yours. Let that be your identity. Let it color your thoughts, your posture, your tone, your decisions. The transformation is not on the screen of the mind, but in the roots of your being. The change is not what you think, but what you accept as self. You may not see images, but you can feel tones. The tone of wealth is distinct. It is calm, it is secure, it is unhurried. When you walk in that tone, even silently, the world begins to recognize you. You send out a signal, not in words, not in effort, but in being. And that signal attracts all things necessary to make your assumption visible. It is important to understand that the world is a mirror, not a creator. It reflects you, it does not decide for you. So if you see lack, it is not the world denying you, it is you still denying yourself. When you accept a new identity, the world obeys. It must. It has no choice. The moment you feel natural in the state, the mirror shifts. Naturalness can be practiced not through repetition, but through familiarity. Ask yourself, what would I do if I had it? How would I feel, dress, speak, move if the money were already mine? Then begin gently to do those things. Not theatrically, not to force, but to tune your inner tone. The body will follow, the speech will follow, and soon the outer world will have no choice but to follow as well. The imagination must be trained, not to see images, but to live states. The state of wealth once worn is like a perfume. You need not tell anyone you wear it, they will sense it. The state of abundance speaks for itself. It enters the room before you do. It is not effortful. It is magnetic. So do not worry if you cannot visualize. Do not struggle with mental pictures. Let that go. Focus instead on being. Practice feeling the truth of your desire fulfilled. Practice resting in the assumption that it is done. Speak less about wanting and more about having. And above all, listen to how you feel when you say, "It is mine." If there is peace, you are aligned. If there is strain, pause and return gently to stillness. That stillness is your workshop. It is where the world is made, not in loud declarations, but in the soft surrender to a new self. And when that self is accepted, not as a dream, but as the truth, then nothing can prevent its outward expression. The $10,000, 0 cents, will come, not as a reward for effort, but as a mirror of who you have become. And so, what I learned is simple, yet completely transformative. You do not manifest by striving, struggling, or even believing in the traditional sense. You manifest by being, by quietly, confidently dwelling in the state of the fulfilled desire without seeing pictures, without forcing belief, without needing signs. The $10,000, 0 cents, did not come because I did something. It came because I became someone. I shifted not my outer world, but my inner identity. I stepped into the feeling that it was already done, and once that state felt natural, reality began to arrange itself accordingly. The world is not your master, it is your mirror. It reflects not what you say, not what you hope, but what you accept as true of yourself. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled without resistance, the work is complete. The rest is simply the outplaying of that inner movement. You do not need to visualize. You do not need to believe. You only need to know. And knowing begins when you stop trying and start being. Let the world catch up to what you already are.